This week on NHRA Today. A look back at the 1990 racing season with Winston Top Fuel champion Joe Amato. A portrait of the general of Amato Racing, crew chief Tim Richards. And the uncovering of the superstitions and good luck charms that won a championship. From Newport Beach, California, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. Winning a Winston Top Fuel Championship is a dream for virtually everyone who has ever strapped themselves into the cockpit of a dragster. But since 1982, arguably the most successful Top Fuel racer has been Pennsylvanian Joe Amato. From an apprenticeship in the alcohol dragsters of the early 80s, Joe graduated to the nitro ranks and never looked back. In 1984, he won 3 events and was runner-up at 4 others, earning him enough points to claim his first Winston title. 4 years later came championship number 2. Courtesy of incredible consistency. In 9 of the 16 events held in 1988, Amato's red dragster reached the final round, taking 4 victories. The following season, Joe and Gary Ormsby staged a year-long duel for the Winston crown, with the Californian emerging on top. But the tables were turned in 1990, and Joe Amato joined an elite club as a 3-time Winston Top Fuel champion. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. Now, everyone knows that recently crowned Winston Top Fuel champion Joe Amato is based in Pennsylvania. But he and his wife, Jerry, maintain a condominium in Southern California for their many visits west. But, Joe, we're not here to talk about vacation homes. We're here to talk about the season that was 1990. But first, I've got to ask you about the annual Joe Amato benefit they run on Saturday at the Winston Finals, known as the Budweiser Top Fuel Classic.
Well, they've been talking about renaming that the Joe Amato benefit race. We've been very fortunate. We've won the race 5 out of 6 times. Don Garros was the only person that beat me 1 time with a hole shot and returned the favor the year later. But over the years, we've won about $250,000 with that accumulation. I think it started at $25,000. It's up to $50,000. It's been plenty exciting.
Those were really your first early successes in Top Fuel.
Yeah, we won that race. We've never been real good on Sunday after we won the races on Saturday always. It's tough to have the momentum for 2 days.
What a final this year, though, in the Bud Classic. Gary Ormsby and yourself.
Yeah, it came down to the 2 cars that were running real close for the Winston Championship in the final of the Bud Shootout on Saturday night. Winner take all, $50,000 on the line, and we were very fortunate. We had a good combination working that day, and the car ran a 496, which was the first 4-second run of the weekend. We won the $50,000 and sent a message to the green car.
And that 496 proved to be a harbinger of things to come, as we'll find out later in this show. Stay with us. We'll return with Joe Amato.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Firestone, makers of Firehawk Performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip. Tires that meet the test. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
We're back in Orange County, California, continuing our chat with now 3-time Winston Top Fuel champion Joe Amato. And Joe, the opening race, the Winter Nationals in Pomona, none of the eventual Winston champs in any pro category had a good outing, Team Valvoline included.
Yeah, we started out real serious. We did a lot of testing in December and January. We came to the Winter Nationals. We ended up losing first round. That was very anticlimactic.
But you went to the Arizona Nationals just 2 weeks later, and you thumped them good.
Well, we came back and we did a little more testing in between, and we went out and we won our race down there, and that got us a little start on the points.
Now, the young lady, Lori Johns, that did win the Winter Nationals, later on, she picked on you pretty good, Joe. She beat you in 2 final rounds.
Yeah, the first race, we were a gentleman. We figured let her beat us 1 time, but then she got mad and got back at us 1 more time, and, we gave her 2 out of her 3 victories in final rounds that she won this year. And then next thing you know, she's leading the points championship.
Did you ever feel she was a serious threat?
Well, at that point on the long haul, we didn't really think so, because it takes a lot of backup cars, crews, and, the whole season's a long time to really stay at the top and keep the momentum going, and she didn't have that experience yet. She'll be there someday, though.
The Cajun Nationals is where Gary Ormsby first reared his head.
Well, we know Gormsby was going to be a contender. They finished the year off strong with a win. With the rule change, threw them a little bit of a curve and set them back, and it took them quite a while to get it all together. But once they got it together, they really made a charge.
Well, going into Denver, one of your favorite racetracks, you had to be concerned, though. Ormsby had won 3 races, including the previous 2 in Canada and New Jersey.
Well, he was on a roll then, and we were going up to the mountain there, mile-high air, and normally Timmy has a real good handle on the track up there and the conditions, and I was hoping we could start that Western Tour like we did last year. I believe we won 2 out of 3 races last year, and we were hoping we could gain some momentum and start making a move on the points, because if he got too far ahead, it was going to get hard to come back and overtake him.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
When a racing team travels to the Mile High Nationals, there are several critical adjustments that must be made for improved performance. And here to explain these changes is Don Garland.
In the good old days, before computers, when we came to race in Denver at over 6,000 feet, a lot of guesswork was used. Oh, we'd put hot plugs in it. We'd step the mags up 4 or 5 degrees, and of course, we'd pour 100% nitro in the tank. But things are a little more scientific now. The first thing they do, the crew chief figures out just how high they really are. Remember relative altitude. Then the crew goes to work and some dramatic changes take place. The first thing they do is change the compression ratio, and they do this by changing the pistons and the rods. Then they speed the blowers up with a smaller pulley right here. Then the mags are stepped up as much as 10 degrees. Some teams will even change the camshaft inside the engine for more torque. Now, a few of the teams will panic. They'll slow the fuel pumps down, but the more aggressive teams will leave the pumps running at the same speed. Remember, the more nitro you can burn, the more horsepower you can make. In the old days, we would change the gear ratio, but not anymore. They'll leave the same gear in because the harder that you load these nitro engines, the more horsepower. One final note, the airfoil. It will be stepped up in its angle of attack because in the thin air, in order to get the same down pressure, the wing will have to have more attack. Well, all in all, the teams have done pretty well because they run nearly as well at Denver as they do at sea level.
Well, Joe Amato ran an incredible 5:10 to win the Mile High Nationals this year, thanks to the tuning adjustments made by his crew chief, Tim Richards, who we'll meet when we come back. We're back in Southern California. Our conversation continues with Joe Amato, the man who will wear the #1 in Top Fuel in 1991. But, Joe, the points were tight. Ormsby wins the California Nationals. The very next week, he wins the Northwest Nationals. You had to be concerned. You knew you had to rely on your 18-year crew chief, Tim Richards.
Yeah, me and Tim go back a long way. We kind of grew up in the sport together. And on the long haul, he's one of the best. He's got that nose for winning. I mean, there's teams out there that win, and there's teams out there that work real hard and try. And I just knew that we stuck with our game plan and stayed consistent. That's the strength of what he does. He picks the people, the parts, and he makes Joe Amato look good.
Well, Joe, we could feel that confidence that Tim Richards had recently when we had a chance to learn more about this multi-dimensional individual.
In drag racing and in life, Tim Richards lives by his own rules.
I believe the reason some people have a problem is they don't tell the truth to themselves. They lie to themselves. They let people around them influence them. I don't let anybody around me influence me.
Yet it's his influence that has set the standards for which the Amato race team is unwilling to compromise.
I treat my crew as I would want to be treated. These guys know exactly what I would do in most instances. I don't have to tell them. I don't have to watch over their shoulder. I know that they're going to do it right. You know, this is how we work. Everything has to be done right or don't bother doing it.
With expectations like that, it's no wonder the nickname The General stuck.
Joe just thought a likely name for me was The General because I had so many people come over and ask me what they should do, you know, on their cars. And sometimes I would get a little mad at them and start barking orders or whatever.
But the demands he places on others, he first places on himself.
I have a deep feeling inside me when I'm racing that I want to win, and that's all there is to it. That's the reason I might seem a little intense to people around me, that I'm always concerned. Well, I am always concerned. There is no second place in this game. Winning is what it's about and what it takes to win.
The determination found in Richards may have been instilled in his early days with Joe.
The first race we went to, he ran me over. And Lex Dudas figured that these guys are never going to make it. I mean, we hadn't even started the car the first run, and I got run over. But we went out the next day. I mean, I guess that was a likely start, but that wasn't going to stop us.
And as it seems, nothing could stop that team because of a simple philosophy held by Tim.
If they had a course in school that would teach common sense, if there was a way to teach that, that would be the most important course you could possibly take. It's looking at what you have and deciding where you go from there. I just use common sense to guide me all the time.
Common sense also tells Richards that there is more to life than just winning races.
I like to go to concerts, symphonies, just about anything. I enjoy that a real lot. That's very relaxing for me. I let my emotions go when I go to these concerts, and I really do enjoy the music, and it relaxes me a great deal.
But for Tim Richards, there's nothing like life on the road.
I love life on the road. A lot of people think it's dreary going on, but there's no time in my life when I'm as happy as I am when I'm at the races, even though it doesn't seem it to people around me. That's when I'm at my happiest. I really do love the races.
Well, Joe, something else that is becoming legend are all the superstitions that you and Tim have.
Yeah, we got a lot of trick stuff. Tim really has been the one who kind of influenced me thinking that way many years ago. He's always had no green allowed anywhere in the pit area, no peanuts. And then I started coming up with things like Snoopy underwear. And I got a lucky rabbit's foot, and it gets crazy because, you know, then I run into a dog named Bear, and one day I rubbed on Bear, and I go and I win a race, and now I carry some bear hair in my fire suit. I mean, it gets crazier and crazier, but it's amazing how it works, you know. And then there's things like people who put, you know, in Italian, they have what they call a moloko, where people put the bad eye on it. So I wear an Italian horn, and I mean, you know, we can get into this for a long time. Yeah. There's a lot to it.
Richards doesn't even want anybody in the pits not wearing socks. That's another of his deals.
Yeah, if you come around with no socks, he calls you un-American.
And throws you right out of the pits.
Yeah, he doesn't, when we get real serious, he gets real serious.
And we're going to get very serious when we come back and take a look at the U.S. Nationals, where this man made his big move. We're back in Newport Beach, California with Joe Amato. Joe, Indianapolis, the U.S. Nationals, in the staging lanes, you could see that you and your wife, Jerry, you were committed to this event.
Well, Steve, when you get into a race like the U.S. Nationals, we've won it 3 out of 4 years. There's a lot of money on the table, and there's a lot of prestige. You know, my wife is very actively involved in our racing team, and she straps me in the car. I always get in the car from the left side, and we have a certain routine we go through. She always gives me a kiss after I put the fire sock on, and then I put the helmet on, and she backs me up on the starting line. So she's part of the whole routine, and we do it the same every time.
It had to really fire you up, though, when Gary Ormsby lost to Wayne Bailey in round number 1, the 16th qualifier.
Yeah, we were down at the finish line. We had run prior to that, and the both of them smoked the tires, and then Bailey ended up pedaling a little better, and he beat Ormsby. I mean, when he came down there, I was like shaking his hand. I told him I'll buy him the best Italian dinner in town. I mean, he made my day for sure, and made my season.
But you seized the opportunity. You can't always do that. At Indy, you did.
Yeah, that's what scared me the most about that. Anytime you get a chance in the motorsports or drag racing, when your opponent loses in a championship hunt, most of the time the team, something happens. So you really have to bear down and not get overexcited about what happened and just try and go on. In that case, we were able to win the race and pick up 800 points on Gary Ormsby and take over the points lead.
Then you went to your home track, your home state, the Keystone Nationals, Maple Grove. You didn't win there.
I've never won at Maple Grove. There's so many people. You know, we had 2,500 customers and fans. I mean, the whole entourage was there cheering us on, and we had more moral support. If we could have won on moral support and hollering and screaming, we would have won. But we always seemed to get close, and something happened. As it was, we lost a real close one to Gene Snow. I think we burned a an exhaust valve out right off the line. We had a couple sparklers go, and we lost a little power and lost by a couple hundredths.
And you watched Ormsby take the final, painful.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, he made another move right there.
Yeah, but you struck right back at the Heartland Nationals. Even though Ormsby had run 488, 296, you still took the measure of the day.
Well, the consistency is what gets you championships. That's what Tim Richards and my whole team are noted for, and we just stayed with our game plan, went out, and ended up winning the race.
I think when Ormsby lost lane choice at that event, he was done for.
Well, that was a very critical...
LaHaye,
To LaHaye, yeah, that's a critical movement. Anytime you lose lane choice in a race situation and something happens, you could cost you the races. See, the way Ormsby races, a lot of times they'll just try and beat their opponent, and they only put enough power, and we do the same thing. Sometimes that wins you the round, but it doesn't win you the lane choice for the next round, so you have to play all the angles.
Well, the Chief Nationals, everybody thought Ormsby will get the record and get the edge on the points. None of that happened. It was way too hot, and it was a Darrell Gwen car and Frank Hawley in the winner's circle. That didn't bother you too much.
Well, I think everybody went into that race thinking Gary's going to run the first 300 and set the record at 480, and I thought he had a chance of doing it myself. But as it always turns out, things are always, the anticipation is actually better than what actually happens.
That's right. 2 weeks after Dallas, the final race of the year, the Winston Finals Pomona, you had only a 254-point lead over Ormsby, and then he did everything right in qualifying to bring that back to 200.
That was a lot of pressure on us going into Sunday morning. He really took control there, and he got low ET, which was 50 points, and he qualified 2 points on the ladder ahead of us. So we went into Sunday morning 200 points ahead. And the way it was, the tiebreaker, if we lost 1 round less than him, which he would have to do to get to 200 points, it could have came down to an absolute tie in the final, and he would have won because he won 1 more round of racing than us. I mean, go 19 races, come down to have a possible of having a tie, and he wins on the first tiebreaker rule to win the Winston World Championship. I mean, that's out of control.
I have personally never been as excited as I was just waiting. It seemed like it took for hours for that final round to come around between you and Ormsby, head-to-head for all the money.
I was never as nervous because, you know, everybody else was excited, but my team and myself, we had to do the job. They had to get the car ready. I had to go out there and drive it, and nobody wanted to let the team down or the sponsors or anything. I mean, it was a situation where you just wanted to go out there and try and do what you had to do.
Apparently, Lee Beard, Ormsby's crew chief, watching the funny car final, noticed a little tire smoke out of Bruce Larson's car and decided to change lanes. You didn't mind a bit going into that far lane.
Well, we've been running good in the left lane all day, and he had us in the right lane at first. The both lanes are probably pretty close. The one thing we had going for us there was, even if we lost the round in the 200 points, if we were able to outrun Gary, if he had hole shot me, and we ran a faster ET, we could have got the 50 points back.
That's right.
And beat him by losing the round, but
you could have red lighted and won.
I could have red lighted and won. So literally, the pressure was on him because he knew the night before we ran a 496 at the same time of the day on the same track to win the Big Butt Shootout in the $50,000. So they had to not only get a good ET and beat me, they had to get a better ET than I was capable of, and that put a lot of pressure on their team, and that's probably why they ended up smoking the tires.
You ran a 493, even though you saw the red light and the tire smoke.
Well, you know, Timmy always likes to know what the car is going to do. I mean, I saw he left pretty early, and the red light came on, and I saw him smoke the tires, but, you know, the fans are there, and you want to do what it's about, and to win a race, not running down there and running something is anticlimactic, even though at that point I probably could have shut it off on the line and just been happy to be relieved. It was like someone took a 1,000-pound weight off my shoulders when that race was over and we won the championship. I'm sure Gary felt the same way. When you wake up at night, all you could think of was the ways you could lose, and you had to get all these positive thoughts in your head. I mean, that was the most pressure I've ever been under in any situation of anything I've ever done in life.
I can tell you there wasn't a fan sitting down when those cars rocketed off the starting line. Joining a very elite group with your 3rd Winston Championship, that's special.
Well, when you get in the class of Don Garlitz and Shirley Muldowney, I mean, them are people that were heroes when I was growing up, and put myself in that same league of a 3-time Winston World Champion. I mean, that's life in the fast lane.
I don't need to ask if you'll defend it aggressively in '91.
Well, there's a couple things to try. We would match Garlitz by being a back-to-back champion. We'd be the first time of anybody ever made a Winston Cup 4-time Winston champion. I mean, that's something that's one of my goals. I'd love to leave a mark on the wall when I retire someday that gives some of these youngsters something to shoot for.
And they'll start shooting immediately in 1991. We're out of time for this edition of NHRA Today, but we'd like to thank Joe Amato and remind you to join us again next week for more drag racing stories. I'm Steve Evans for all of us here at NHRA Today.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars, and by Firestone, makers of Firehawk performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip, tires that meet the test. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from NHRA Today has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports.